Morning, everyone. I've been in the events game, I suppose, for about 20 years, but I never quite get over that feeling at the beginning of an event where you just wonder, is anybody going to turn up to your party? So thank you very much for all arriving so promptly this morning. My name is Antony Walker. I'm Deputy CEO of techUK, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this, which is our third annual Tech Policy Conference. We've previously held these events in the summer, but we brought the date forward this year to avoid the risk of being caught out by a spring general election. Now, I think that may be starting to look like what's called in the PR trade overabundance of caution, but who knows? The Prime Minister's still got a couple of weeks to make up his mind. I haven't written off my £5 bet quite yet on when the election will be, but we'll see. And of course, our event today very much has an election focus as we look ahead through to the end of the decade and ask how the next government can use technology to build a better Britain. Now, I'm grateful to all of our speakers who will be joining us to discuss the many and varied aspects of this question, and not least, of course, DSIT Secretary of State, the Right Honourable Michelle Donnellan, who will be joining us this morning, and Shadow Secretary of State Peter Kyle, who will be speaking this afternoon. And I'm also extremely grateful for the support of our sponsors, Microsoft, Sage, Autodesk, and Logically, without whose support we couldn't run events like this today. Now, at our policy conference last summer, we produced our UK Tech Plan, which was our early submission to all those tasked with writing election manifestos and thinking about how to meet the needs of the United Kingdom through to the rest of this decade. And if there is one need that stands out above all others, it's the need for economic growth. Last week's budget made it plain just how important economic growth will be for the aspirations of the next government, whoever is in charge next year, to deliver on their vision for Britain. They will need to get the economy on track for much stronger economic growth than we've achieved in recent years. And they'll need to raise the productivity of our public services beyond the gains achieved so far. And unless they can achieve both of these things, they'll find running the country over the next 5 years a pretty tough ride. And that's why our discussion today is so important, because to achieve those objectives, we're going to have to harness the productive power of digital technology right across the sector, right across every sector of the economy and every corner of the UK. And none of that will be easy. Putting digital technology to good use in a business or a hospital or a government department is hard. It depends upon bringing the knowledge and skills together of diverse teams. It depends upon making difficult decisions. It depends on having a clear vision of what you want to achieve. And it depends on learning the lessons from what's been done before. Put simply, we won't trip over the productivity and economic benefits of digital technology. We're going to have to work for them. Now, the good news is that we have many of the building blocks in place to make this happen. The UK's got an advanced economy with a strong digital sector, world-leading research capabilities, and a dynamic startup ecosystem. The growth and development of the UK tech sector has been a real modern economic success story, with its contribution to the UK economy rising over 25% between 2010 and 2019. The UK tech sector currently adds around 150 billion a year to our economy, making it one of the most valuable economic assets and still very much the leading tech sector in Europe. Now, none of that is cause for complacency about what might happen in the years ahead. But in a world that is being increasingly defined by digital technology, it's an enviable position to build from. And it is a position that business leaders in the UK tech sector feel positive about. Ahead of today's conference, we undertook some business sentiment polling with Public First. And we found that the 250 senior business leaders who we spoke to were overwhelmingly positive about the UK as a market to do business. 70% of respondents gave the UK a positive score, and 24% gave the UK a score of 9 out of 10. The 5 most commonly cited benefits for operating in the UK were access to a reliable customer base, the UK's strong tech ecosystem, access to a skilled workforce, good digital infrastructure, and a strong R&D environment. And when asked to look ahead, it was clear that business leaders have a strong growth mindset, with ambitions firmly fixed on growing their businesses, harnessing new technology, and expanding their capabilities, products, and services. And more than 3/4 reported that they were likely to already have plans to expand their businesses into overseas markets, with the United States as their top preferred destination. AI, unsurprisingly, was seen as a game changer, but interestingly, it was narrow AI rather than the more headline-grabbing generative AI that was seen as the biggest immediate opportunity. Meanwhile, when we asked which city outside of London had the best environment for tech, the respondents chose Manchester, Birmingham, and Cambridge as their top 3 in that order. However, this is not a sector that's immune to the cost pressures affecting businesses across the UK. When asked what factors were standing in the way of their growth ambitions, energy costs, business taxes, and high interest rates were most commonly cited. Nevertheless, these tech companies said they would keep investing in new technology to drive productivity, reach new consumers, grow revenue, and develop new products. And ask any economist, and they'll describe these factors as the absolute core components of economic growth. So there's no doubt in my mind that the UK tech sector can continue to expand, and that the success of the UK tech sector must feature strongly in any future government's plans to grow the economy. But of course, tech's contribution goes much further than that, because it's in the process of digitization of the whole economy that we have the potential for long-term productivity gains, which are essential to get living standards rising again. So it is the adoption of digital technology across the public and private sector that we believe has to be at the core of any meaningful strategy to achieve long-term sustainable economic growth. Now, the tech plan that we published last year set out a broad series of top-level recommendations to make this happen, and I'm pleased to say that over the weeks and months that followed publication of that report, we had excellent engagement and discussions with policy thinkers, both inside and outside government, and across every part of the UK. Today, we are adding flesh to the bones of that tech plan with a new report that addresses the barriers that we identified in that report and sets out 7 tech priorities for the next government. These recommendations have been developed in close cooperation with our members and in many cases are informed by our close dialogue with civil servants right across Whitehall. In many cases, they build upon good initiatives that are already happening. And we're absolutely not reinventing the wheel here, but we are interested in how we can develop the best possible tyre compounds to maximise performance. So let me give you a flavour of what we're calling for. So we've set out 7 priorities, and the first, perhaps unsurprisingly, is to update the AI strategy and strengthen incentives for vital capital investment. By updating the AI strategy for the mid-2020s with a focus on adoption and deployment, by classifying strategic digital infrastructure as nationally significant, and by extending the R&D tax credit to cover capital incentives, the next government could better signal and coordinate the UK's ambitions, fast-track the delivery of key infrastructure, and create stronger incentives for investment in physical and capital R&D. Now, second priority would be to remove the barriers to the digitisation of public services. Through a new technology procurement delivery body, the next government could fulfil the aims of the Procurement Act and drive best practice about how government buys digital services. Citizens' health accounts and a new VPAS system for digital health tech could encourage interoperability in the NHS, give patients more choice and power over their healthcare, as well as a platform for funding mechanism for our health tech industry. Our third priority would be to open the opportunities of the digital economy to everyone. A new digital schools toolkit and a comprehensive plan for SME digital adoption by 2030, and a network of connected hubs would help to bring the tech sector to hard-to-reach communities and underrepresented groups. Additionally, these measures would create new talent and tools and infrastructure, helping to spread the opportunities of the tech sector more widely across society. Our fourth priority would be to leverage new technology to keep us safe online and to tackle fraud by creating an online safety sandbox and a package of legislation and guidance to create parity between digital ID and physical IDs. The next government can help to deliver new digital tools that can help us to improve online safety, tackle disinformation and reduce fraud. Our fifth priority would be a new regulatory model that recognises the economic importance of our digital regulators, a pro-growth framework for our regulators, and a commercialisation of tech task force would help to secure a new balance in our economy, about how our economy works, ensuring that alongside protecting consumers, regulators must also seek to shepherd key parts of the economy into the future. Our sixth priority would be to help UK tech companies scale across the country, building on work already started by DCIT, continuing the UK's scale-up sprint, taking a rapid test and learn approach to policy interventions, will help to identify new finance opportunities, secure access to online talent, and open up new technology markets, creating opportunities for tech businesses to scale across the UK. And finally, a new approach to trade and technology in a more fractious world. By prioritising digital economy agreements and new tech bridges, the UK can help to create a flexible and impactful trade policy in a more fractious and complex global trading environment. Now, these really are just the headlines, and if you read the report, I think you'll find a lot more detail and I believe some very practical, well thought through ideas. And when it comes to this crucial question of how the next government can use technology to build a better Britain, there is so much to think about, so many opportunities to make incremental improvements that, if taken together, could deliver meaningful benefits to the quality of life of people across the UK. Crucially, these recommendations aren't really about technology. They're about people, about ideas, actions, and our ability to work collaboratively with purpose to create better outcomes. And nor are these ideas entirely comprehensive. The need for brevity means there's much that hasn't been covered. And I think this takes me to my final point before I close. We live in an age of extraordinary technological capabilities that are growing at an exponential rate. But our ability to understand how to adopt these technologies productively still depends upon a huge amount of human brain power. So perhaps the most important recommendation for our next government is to maintain an open and extensive dialogue, not just with the leading edge innovators and the entrepreneurs, but also with users and adopters, academics and civil society actors. It's our firm belief that the more perspectives we share and understand about the role of technology in a modern economy and society, the more chance we have of getting it right. Well, many thanks for listening. I hope you'll be enthused and stimulated by the sessions throughout today as we discuss how to use technology to build a better Britain. Thank you very much.